Gaza and kill Palestinians.
For no reason, they're just raiding Gaza, just for fun. Just raid Gaza. To do what exactly? To steal their nothing?
Gee, I really wonder what could be the overall goal of raiding the Gaza Strip periodically over time. Surely the answer just evades me. It's such a mystery. I'm sure it has nothing to do with Israeli finance minister and self-described fascist homophobe Bezalel Smotrich donning a map of Greater Israel at a press conference.
What would the raid entail? What would be the purpose of such a raid? Can you explain?
Happy to explain, but I can just let Israeli government officials do it for me. The purpose of operations like Cast Lead and Protective Edge are part of what former military commander and Prime Minister Ariel Sharon called Israel's main weapon, its deterrence capacity. It's a direct quote. Israel's deterrence strategy, spelled out formally by the IDF in what they refer to as their Dahiyya doctrine, which I encourage people to research, centered on waging preemptive asymmetrical warfare against a civilian population and its infrastructure in order to instill fear in Israel's rivals within the region. In 2006, before these three operations that I cited in my previous video, although there are many others, two important things happened. One, Israel lost a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Facing humiliation, the IDF, in accordance with their Dahiyya doctrine, once again needed a punching bag to remind everyone within the region that Israel was not to be messed with. And predictably, they turned to defenseless Gaza. As one former Israeli foreign minister put it, Israel's real foe is not Hamas, it is the memory of 2006. Or, as other Israeli government officials put it at the time, Gaza is to Lebanon what a second sitting for an exam is to the first. A second chance to get it right. The second important thing that happened in 2006 was that Hamas did what the US had been urging it to do. It participated in an election. Hamas just made one grave mistake. It actually won the election in what President Jimmy Carter, who was there at the time, described as a completely fair and honest election. That's a direct quote. And the international community...
This part is 100% facts. I mean, this guy is cooking pretty fucking hard. Yeah. So there were obviously other considerations, other reasons. Like the secular groups had urged George G.W.B. to not fucking hold this election, but they didn't listen. And they were like, no, don't worry. You guys will win. And then they were spread out, and some of the secular vote was split between multiple groups, whereas Hamas would end up winning. Hamas also ran an anti-corruption campaign. So, there was that aspect of it.
Aside from the United States and Israel, of course, agreed. This was, of course, unacceptable to the United States and Israel. Why? Because Israel and the United States could not afford having Hamas look as if it is a legitimate democratic governing body. Hamas had also signaled that it was in support of the world consensus, implementing a two-state solution. Of course, the only countries that are...
Which, by the way, Hamas's position has changed. But also on top of that, like people always use the 1988 charter, they've tried to legitimize themselves while still maintaining the position that they will engage in violent action against Israel in retaliation to curb what they deem is unjustifiable actions against Palestinians in the West Bank. Hasanabi defending Hamas just like Big GW? No, fuck no, of course not. Suck my dick. You just got unbanned, you fucking idiot. You got unbanned after literally being banned for years. For fucking years, dipshit. Are you trying to get banned again? Okay, let's see. I'm so mad. I'm so fucking mad. It's so frustrating. I'm starting to get fucking sick of the Hasanabi shit, dude. I mean, Jesus Christ. I can't even fucking... Everywhere I go.
That are against a two-state solution in the world are Israel and the United States. So, in order to oust Hamas as the governing body in Palestine, Israel, along with the United States, planned a military coup against the government. Hamas sniffed it out and stopped it. After Hamas successfully warded off the coup, Israel began planning its Operation Cast Lead, which was, as the UN's fact-finding investigative report concluded in 2009, designed to humiliate, punish, and terrorize the civilian population in order to break their support for Hamas and fracture Gaza once again.
Yep, he is, wow, fucking all facts. This dude is great. Holy shit. This dude is a swagged out white boy through and through. Holy moly. I'm legitimately shocked, especially because like there's a lot of dumb shit on TikTok, okay? There's a lot of stupid shit on TikTok. I did not expect someone to be this well read. That's pretty cool. Is there a part 2?
Yeah, let's go back to 1967 when Israel started.
Oh, he put my fucking react
let's see
video
what
too.
Rathbone had to say.
Actually, Hamas started this whole thing. Remember October 7th? Actually, that's wrong. Before.
All right, well, we already watched that. Well, or rather, we already lived it.
Yeah, let's go back to 1967 when Israel started a preemptive war.
Egypt was mobilizing its air force.
Syria.
Yes, Egypt mobilized its military within its borders, which last time I checked is not a violation of international law. But do you know what is a violation of international law? Firing first strike missiles.
Blowing up their fucking air force because you felt like it. 90% of them.
Into Egypt from Israel. That's why I said Israel started a preemptive war against Egypt. You can read a book on this matter, or you could simply just go to the Wikipedia page to find the most basic information, such as who started the war in 1967. And back up for a second. Do you even know why Egypt mobilized its military in the Sinai? Because a month earlier, in May 1967, before the war broke out, Israel threatened Syria and made plans to attack.
Legally occupied the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in what has been formally condemned ever since 1967 as an illegal occupation in violation of international law, unilaterally condemned by the
about the world.
Dude, this was my favorite part. He's just so, like, he did not have to post this TikTok, man. Ben, you could have found any number of other TikToks. Why did you post this motherfucker's TikTok? He just destroyed you. Wrong! Who gives a shit about international courts? It's like, yeah, dude, you are really the fucking arbiter of truth and justice when you literally look at one of the most toothless institutions that simply symbolically will tell you when you're wrong without any sort of real backing behind it since World War II. So, like, it's wild. It's wild when it's the same energy, and I said this when I was watching the video the first time, it's the same energy as, like, the Israeli account shitting, like, quote tweeting the fucking Geneva Convention or the UN account being like, war crimes are needed. It's like, come on, dude. What the fuck are you doing? The fuck are you doing? This is why it's funny. Yo, what the fuck? Not fun fact. Ben Gvir stole Yitzhak Rabin's Cadillac hood ornament before he was assassinated. Strangest find of the day. Yeah, he did. I mean, we're in here for the past 3 weeks. I've talked about this quite a bit. He said, today we get his car. Tomorrow we get him. I mean, they make no mistake. Both Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and also Ben Gvir, Itamar Ben Gvir, were very openly calling for the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, and so much so that the Israeli government had to tell Benny boy, okay, to fucking tone it down because Rabin was getting a shit ton of assassination threats, like death threats, credible death threats. and Benjamin Netanyahu was like, no. And then after he died, the most like out of control, disgusting thing, Bibi Netanyahu in the most Philadelphia way turned around and said, I hate that he died and he was martyred because I was going to beat his ass in the election anyway, which was true. But it's like a fucking gross thing to say about a dude who was assassinated.
World Court.
Nobody gives a shit about the World Court is what he just said. This man is completely off the rails in his rapacious defense of the current bloodletting in Gaza. This is actually a very revealing moment for Ben. The World Court, aka the International Court of Justice, is an arm of the United Nations. The United Nations is largely a creation of the United States. It is certainly controlled by the United States. No institution is more sympathetic, cowering, absolving of Israel and the United States than the United Nations. That is why some in the media expressed shock last week when they heard the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres cast the slightest bit of shade to Israel when he said,
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
Crazy. It's crazy to me, dog. I can't believe every single motherfucker is now. There's two reasons why this is crazy, okay? One, it's crazy because holy shit, it took 56 years for these fucking assholes, okay, I mean, I guess like the UN always is been critical of Israel. It just like doesn't even really matter. But I do feel like the dam is breaking a little bit. In all of the past 10 years that I've been advocating for Palestinians, I've never seen this many like powerful people in positions of power genuinely openly state what is going on and even take steps to just like leave their fucking jobs in protest, to be like, this is unacceptable. Like, I recognize my powerlessness in the face of like America's State Department interests, but I just simply want to wash my hands of it. You know what I mean? Like, if I can't do anything about it, at least like I don't want to, my name should not appear next to these fucking animals in the history books. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's going on. It's really, really, that part is actually at least a little bit different than like what you normally see. Not that it fucking matters, because the media is still absolutely full-throating, just throat-goading, unimaginably throat-goading Israel as best as they can. Like, they still almost exclusively have like IDF people on whose entire job is to literally speak to an English-speaking audience and tell them that like, no, this has to happen, right? No, Palestinian children have to die. I'm sorry. They have to die. And watch Aussie Journal let Israel ex-prime minister say insane things to deny genocide. Oh yeah, I wanted to fucking watch this as well. But it's still happening. It's still happening in the Western media. But having said that, that sort of stuff never happened even back in 2018 during the March of Return. Yeah, like think about the hubris, like the arrogance in 2018 when Benjamin Netanyahu could go on American TV and say that all of the fucking children and all the fucking medics and all the pregnant lady, people in wheelchairs, like everyone that the IDF personally sniped, knowing full well that they were sniping them, right? On their peaceful demonstration at that Gaza border wall, Benjamin Netanyahu had the audacity to go on American television and say these are telegenically dead babies. Okay? Palestine has telegenically dead babies. That's what he said. Think about that. The gall. And nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. People were like, yeah, that's right, I guess. I don't know. Who gives a fuck? Not trying to sound annoying, but I'm a normie. Is there any days where you don't watch the news and just watch regular stuff? I apologize. This is like an issue that I'm very passionate about. So for the past week, for the past 3 weeks, I haven't stopped with my coverage. Eventually, I will try to get the greener pastures. I want to, but it is hard when, you know, you hear about doctors having to perform C-sections without anesthetics, doctors having to perform surgeries on children without anesthetics. Like, this is, you know, there's an active genocide going on. It's just, I'm entirely too stubborn to stop constantly and consistently talking about it, especially as there's new developments, because I want people to know, I want people to learn, I want people to know what to say to others, especially when the overwhelming mainstream media. Chatter doesn't realize that in May 2021 you covered Palestine for a whole week too. Yeah. But back then it was incredibly violent, but it was not as violent. It has never been as violent. So on the one hand, I for my own mental sanity, I want to move away from this stuff. But on the other hand, it's just like I go to sleep and I wake up in the middle of the night and I fucking check Twitter to see if there's any new updates. It's like there's just children being ruthlessly slaughtered every single moment. There's a new kid being killed every 10 fucking minutes in Gaza right now. It's impossible for me to look away from that. You know, it's hard. Anyway, let's continue.
They have seen their land steadily devoured by settlements and plagued by violence, their economy stifled, their people displaced, and their homes demolished. Their hopes for a political solution to their plight have been vanishing.
You mean organizations staffed by people who hate Israel and the UN and the Red Cross?
It is truly wild to hear such a pro-capitalist Western neoliberal decry the very global institutions which have been brought to us by Western capitalism.
And like literally designed Israel, you know what I mean? And like defended Israel in its inception. One thing that I will say is there are two the violence And the structural violence of poverty is endless under a capitalist organization of the economy. But even liberals find it distasteful to enact violent action on racial and ethnic boundaries. This is why the apartheid is unjustifiable, but the current conditions in South Africa, which resemble an apartheid, not as aggressive, not as awful, but the material conditions still resemble the historic atrocities of apartheid South Africa, are seen as permissible, right? Because you can turn a blind eye to that kind of violence as long as it's being doled out as class violence. Liberal capitalists will be fine with class violence, but some liberal capitalists cannot also on top of that allow violence to happen on the basis of ethnicity. Most people recognize that it's like fucked up. That's not appropriate. Israel's gone way too far.
And who serve the interests of Western capitalism. But just as a democratic government, corrupt as it is, still remains the one political avenue by which people can have agency over their lives, so does the UN remain the one political avenue by which countries can have their voices heard and a world consensus be formulated. In other words, there's much obviously wrong with the UN, but I don't think that the principles expressed in the articles of its charter are necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a good thing that we have international laws and diplomatic mechanisms in place to resolve conflicts between countries, to prevent war crimes. Ben's obvious disdain for international laws, standards, and practices reveals to me what is commonly understood as American exceptionalism. Rules for thee, not for me. The United States gives orders, it is under no obligation to follow them.
Geneva Conventions.
Geneva Conventions.
Scoffing at the Geneva Conventions is truly wild, if for no other reason than for the simple fact that it was expressly created in the wake of World War II, primarily forged by the United States, in order to prevent another mass atrocity like the Holocaust.
Yeah, let's go back to 19...
Shitting on the Geneva Conventions is wild, you know what I mean? A bird is very close to flying out of homie's hair. Yeah, his hair is crazy. I mean, the reality is that the Geneva Suggestions, of course, are created with the express purpose of, like, America using it against its foreign adversaries.
You put over 1 million kids in a concentration camp? Hey, comparing anything to the Holocaust is denying the Holocaust. Nothing compares to the Holocaust. Okay, well, on October 7th, Hamas is trying to exterminate us. It's like the Holocaust all over again. But you just said, we must protect ourselves. We are the victims here. You proclaiming virginal innocence and equating yourself to be the same as the victims of the Holocaust, while you indiscriminately and systematically genocide people who have been living in what has been likened to an open-air concentration camp. And furthermore, the fact that you've been doing this for decades is in and of itself a denial of the Holocaust. Hamas targeted civilians. Israel is targeting civilians right now. No, Israel is at war. Well, if that's the case...
Yeah, there's no standard. Once you recognize that the standard is Palestinians are not human and Israelis are human, then you understand this double standard.
Then Israel is committing war crimes. Under the principle of the international humanitarian law and summarily expressed by Israeli scholar and former president of Tel Aviv University, Yoram Dinstein, there is no genuine difference between a premeditated attack and a reckless disregard for the principle of distinction. What's the principle of distinction? Parties to an armed conflict must at all times distinguish between civilians and combatants, and between civilian objects and military objectives.
By the way, this is the reason why October 7, in my opinion, was unjustifiable and also inherently violent and was a slaughter. Like that's it. It's the same. It's the same thing that I've said before. It's just like when you target a force and you engage in violent actions against civilians, it's just like, yeah, it's over. It's a war crime. Like,
you put over 1 million kids.
Except, of course, Israel is the king at war crimes. So